This is Link to the Cast, your weekly dose of video games and nerd culture ephemera, available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I am this week's party host. I am the platforming prodigy. I am Mark Robinson, and we are continuing our trend of having only one episode this year where all four of us are on the on the podcast, as Dave is away on assignment. But with me, as always, to my left, first of all, he is Frank Lampard's favourite son. He is Jack Lazel. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm not happy that anytime Dave isn't on the show, you intro it with some sort of reference to Chelsea, when I'm just kind of try to quietly ignore what's going on in West London.
How could I ever possibly do such a thing?
It's just outrageous, mate. You know, you never, whenever things are going well, you never bring it up. You never let me gloat about it.
But how are you? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Footballing, concerns aside.
Yeah, not too bad. I would like to say I've done productive things this week, but what I've actually been doing is just playing a ridiculous amount of PGA Tour 2023. So I'll have you know that I just won the FedEx Cup before we started recording. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Robinson.
I should say, Jack, thank you for making me a tidy little winnings on the Masters last week. Your each way bets proved positive in the end. 65
big ones is what I picked up. So I roughly think that would be about what you would have got if you did £2 each way. So yeah.
To my right, I have no idea if he is a gambling man. I guess we're going to find out, because all we ever want to know is what is Garrett thinking about said subject. Garrett Kidney, welcome back after was it 3 week absence from the show?
3 weeks, and despite having worked for a betting company, I am not in fact a gambling man.
That's probably the smart way to be.
So I have profited off gambling without having ever gambled, which is ideal.
It's perfect. It's exactly the way it should be. How are you doing? How have your 3 weeks been off? I know you were obviously doing a whole bunch of stuff over the WrestleMania weekend. Have you fully recovered from the shenanigans that was that weekend?
They keep making new wrestling. I thought they just did it for a whole weekend, and now they're still like, no, there's more. It's like, oh, well, I guess
it never stops. It never fucking stops.
I've actually been off preparing for Joe Biden visit to Ireland.
Yeah. Has he made it down to Cork yet?
He's not coming to Cork.
No?
He came to Cork, but Joe Biden isn't. Disgusting.
He's been hovering around. So it's kind of weird. Like I'm about 10 minutes outside of the city centre, kind of going towards the ring road that goes around Dublin, and it's a fairly kind of chill out, sort of quiet, not quite suburban, but it's a fairly chill out area. And I'm pretty sure he was driving the route, because the uptick in Garda that we had on kind of the streets going that way was basically where before it was like a 0% of Gardaí that you would see. It was about 200% at this point, but there was like no crowds, no people, no one there. There were the guardrails like for people to kind of stand behind, but there was no actually anyone there. So I don't know if it was really early or what time like his flight was, but
or maybe no one wanted to turn up to watch Joe Biden drive past. Like,
I mean, after his little black and tans comment the other day, you'd think they'd all be for it, but I don't know.
What did he say?
He accidentally, instead of saying the All Blacks, because he was talking about Ireland's victory over New Zealand in America, instead of saying All Blacks, he said black and tans.
Wow. Okay.
Which is the highlight of the trip. I'm very conflicted.
I mean, it might be the highlight of his presidency so far, in fairness.
It may well be. It's classic Joe Biden. But like the degree to which we're fawning over him is not even borderline embarrassing. It's far past the borderline of embarrassing. But also, like, we'll make so much tourism money from unsuspecting Americans from all this fawning. So there's both sides of that, because like the English market in Cork, which the Queen just popped her head into, now just does insane business. It did good business anyway, but all the English tourists are like, oh, that's where the Queen went. And if you've never seen Barack Obama Plaza in Moneygall, where we built a service station, a rest stop around Obama in his ancestral home, I'm sure there'll be Joe Biden Plaza now in is it Ballina they're in?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, this is getting niche.
Like we are bowing at the man's feet. He's like, I have Irish heritage, and we're like, he has Irish heritage. It's a little embarrassing, but listen, we'll make money off it, so that's all that matters.
It's 2 steps removed from, that time The Rock was like, yay, Toronto!
Exactly what I was thinking. It is just basically a hometown pop, isn't it? It's like, I once cared love about the fact that 4 generations back, one of my great grandmas was half Irish, and everyone's like, "Yay!" And yeah, it's just pandering, isn't it? In the extreme.
And we will go all in on that. It was like, we fucking love it. It's like, oh, a quarter Irish. We can claim them. Please come home so we can build an entire 3-day trip around celebrating you. And then you can stand there and watch a camogie game and you get hit in the head with a slitter.
That's
the thing is, like, there isn't a need to be creating these I don't know, landmarks or touristy type things for presidential visits and whatnot, because Ireland is a beautiful country. It has many things to go around, and you can make a good solid week to 2 weeks of just touring around the country and
Ireland has what I'd like
landmarks.
to describe as hella castles, so there's plenty of those to go and check out.
And hella cliffs.
Hella cliffs, yeah, Cliffs of Moher, shout out West Coast is the best coast, etc, etc. What I would say is, guys, if there was somebody coming to visit your hometown, who would you stand behind a barrier for and line the streets to observe, drive past in a car? Who'd be your, like, oh my god, it's blank, I'm going to go out and stand in the rain and clap as they go past and wave like they're screwing in a light bulb?
Mine would just be Hook.
Hook.
I was thinking for Garrett it would be Chris O'Donnell at this point, surely.
Well, yeah, fair enough. Who wouldn't? Only if he's in the suit, though. Just regular him I don't give a fuck about, but if he's in the nipple suit, listen, I'll be there.
It is fucking wild. He's 52 years old. Good grief.
But he's the boy wonder.
Hawaii 5-0 show.
I don't know.
I saw that advertised on TV for a while, like on Sky One, I think it was on, and I was just like, nah. Was it?
I'm sure if you checked, it probably had like 16 seasons, but I don't know if they're still making it.
Oh boy. Probably. It's those shows that just keep on going that you're just like, wait, who is watching this? And it'll go for like 15, like you say, 15, 16 seasons. You just think, fucking hell.
It's what we call the Bones syndrome.
Yeah. How many seasons of like Supernatural was there? Not saying Supernatural's bad, but I was just like, someone's like, oh, I watched this show, and then I looked how many seasons there, and I was like, bloody hell. There must be like
I have that at the moment with Maria, because she's up to, I think, like season 10 of Grey's Anatomy, and that thing just fucking goes and goes.
They are still going.
And it's still going.
Is it going to overtake Raw as the most episodic television thing?
I don't think anything possibly could, sadly.
Oh.
Who would you stand behind a guardrail for, Jack?
I mean, probably, I don't know, Gianfranco Zola, maybe. But I've seen him up close many a time, so I'm not sure. Like, so it would have to be somebody like completely out of the ordinary that I really like. That is just, I know is just never going to be anywhere near me ever again. Which makes it really difficult to kind of pick someone out. I don't know. Maybe AC/DC guitarist Angus Young. I'd be really excited because I saw them one time ages ago, but he lives in Australia, so him sort of like driving past, I'd definitely go and wave at Angus Young. He's pretty cool.
I don't know who I'd go for. I can't think of anyone specific. I do have, like, do you either of you, whenever you've been around or you've seen a famous person, do you have that kind of bit in you where you're like, I want to go up and say hello, or I want to get a picture or whatever, but you have that slightly, I don't know if it's like a wrestling thing where I've been to conventions and I've seen the way that people act around wrestlers, and I'm like, I don't want to act like that. I want to come across as like a normal fucking human being. He says while he has pictures of Excalibur and Kevin Steen hugging him, but we'll get past that. So I don't know if it's that I overthink these things, and I try not to like fanboy or fangirl whatever when someone famous is around. Am I overthinking this, or am I just insane?
It is the funny thing of like that interaction to you is extremely meaningful, and if it goes badly, it's the kind of thing you'll think about for the next 5 years of your life, and it's gone out of that person's head in like 35 seconds.
Yeah, by the time they've turned around, it's already gone.
Yeah,
that guy was weird. Move on.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I've seen famous, like, again, like, it sounds like a humble brag, but it really isn't. If you live in and around London, you tend to see famous people out. It's like, not all the time, but enough. And I just don't bother them. I just let them get on with it. Even if it's somebody I really liked, I don't know if I'd bother them for a picture or an autograph. I think I'm at the age now where I'm like, I'm a man in my mid-30s. I'm like, I'm not going to go up to this person and be like, oh my God, it's Mario Stanic.
At this point, Jack, you have a successful podcast. Surely they should be coming up to you.
Yeah, they should be like, can I go on that link to the cast? I'm like, no, you are not better than Garrett. You are not coming on.
That's the bar.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
I think if he was still alive, I would probably say David Bowie would be mine.
Wow. Yeah.
I feel like that's a weighty enough gravitas that I think that's a reasonable choice.
Jazz funk bassist Thundercat would also be on my list. That's a cool fucking dude.
He is pretty cool, in fairness.
And just look at him, like he's magical. He dresses in like crazy expensive yet mismatched clothes. He's got those like messy dreads, just a whole vibe. I love that guy. Everyone go and listen to the song Dragon Ball Do-Rag. What a tune.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
It's a great song. Let us rock over to what we've been watching, and I mentioned The Rock there, so I'll just carry on with him. I'm not going to spend too long because, look, it's a film from 2016, but I watched Moana for, I don't know, like the 4th, 5th time yesterday. First time in a while. I hadn't watched it in a while. And I remember at the time when I watched it for the first time that I thought it was a tremendous film. And watching it back yesterday, I put it to you two with the lofty claim that I would say it's probably the best Walt Disney animated film of the 21st century.
No.
No?
No.
You're speaking to the expert here. So
I know. I'm glad Garrett was on this week because I had that claim and I wanted to see what the response would be.
The response is so unenthusiastically that you're wrong.
Well,
but I'm also
the 21st century includes Lilo and Stitch, which is my personal favorite movie.
Yeah, so. if I was going to hear an argument for another one, Lilo and Stitch would absolutely be the other one that I would hear the argument for.
I think Zootopia is a better movie.
Zootopia is great.
Trying to think about the rest.
And I would certainly say that I think Moana may have the best. I think that soundtrack kind of like harkens back to kind of golden era 90s, or is it golden era? Is that what they classify as? Or silver era? I don't know, but that 90s era, I think the soundtrack it's as strong as anything from there. Not saying it's better then, but I think it holds up against some of those soundtracks. I think it's got so many good songs, and Shiny in particular just cracks me up every time I hear it.
We're excluding all Pixar, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Zootopia's good. It's Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6 is Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Which I think is a better movie too.
Yeah, that's a great film. I'm just trying.
I honestly think the first Frozen is a better movie.
You know what? I didn't see Frozen until I'd say about 2 or 3 years after, and by that point it was very much like I'm aware of what Frozen is now, and I did go into it, and I didn't come out of it. I didn't watch it trying to hate watch it because it was the big thing. I think Frozen is a totally fine film, but I do think it's a little bit overrated.
Movie rocks. A very personal one for me, Winnie the Pooh. That 2011 Winnie the Pooh film is so funny. That film rocks.
I don't think I saw that. Is it worth watching?
And it's like an hour as well. Like you breeze through it. Both of them, like the original Pooh movie and the new one, they're just delights. They're just utter delights of movies.
Do you know what I weirdly liked,
would be like in the region of Moana, I would have said, but
I think that Wreck-It Ralph, my issue with that film is it starts off so strong and then it kind of tails off for me. I think it has such a strong premise that I don't know, I feel like I got so much out of that trailer and then it wasn't what I wanted it to be, so maybe that's on me.
Tangled is pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say Tangled too. I think I prefer Tangled. So not even top 5, Mark. Sorry.
Wow.
That's okay. That's fine. The other thing I was going to ask is Moana the last film where The Rock wasn't, like, in his real life presentation, didn't come across as like a sexless dork? This is about 2016 we're talking here.
Yeah, the key is to animate him. I wonder, because they're remaking this movie in live action with The Rock. I wonder how much less bearable
it's crazy that that's getting remade and it's only, what, 8 years old, if that?
That doesn't stop him.
I do like Hobbs and Shaw, by the way. Hobbs and Shaw I liked.
I hate that movie.
I see, this is why we have Garrett.
The banter in that movie.
The Jumanji movies were quite good, but not because of The Rock, I think.
No.
Did you not like the Jumanji movies?
I didn't see the second one. I thought the first it's all right. It's an affable family movie.
Yeah, but it's not bad though, is it? It's like, you know.
No, I was just co-signing that that The Rock isn't the thing that makes those movies good.
Yeah.
I find it surprising that they were doing a live action remake of Moana before Frozen. I would have thought that Frozen was the cash cow there to cash in on.
Listen, they'll do it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm surprised. Like, they probably already have like an Encanto live action movie in the works. They have a live action movie of everything in the works.
Also,
why would you want to do it for a bad film?
The Rock's production company drives a lot of this as well. Is it $10 or something, or $7? I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, Rock probably just needs a win after Black Adam, and he knows, like, let's do a live action Disney movie. It's the easiest win he could possibly have, so let's just do a live action Moana. So, yeah.
Anyway, Moana, I like it.
He's got a movie coming out with Chris Evans.
I've never seen Brother Bear.
Brother Bear's great. Yeah.
So,
that's Phil Collins,
I have a soft spot for Treasure Planet.
Honestly, like, when I was looking at this earlier, the sort of 2010s or the first decade of the 21st century for Walt Disney films is a lot of a blind spot for me. Like, I've not seen Treasure Planet, I've not seen Brother Bear, Home on the Range, Chicken Little. I barely remember Meet the Robinsons. I've not seen Bolt. I only saw Princess and the Frog for the first time with Maria because it's one of her favorite Walt Disney films. So, like, all of those I have no reference for.
Yeah, because it's the era where, obviously, post Golden Age, post, like, you know, Tarzan and Hercules and Mulan and Hunchback of Notre Dame and Pocahontas and Lion King and Little Mermaid, like the films that people hold in very high reverence. And then you get into, like, you hit Dinosaur and you're like, uh-oh, there's something not so good in the Disney world right now. People really like Emperor's New Groove. I think...
I like Emperor's New Groove.
I think my big problem is a lot of the comic style of Emperor's New Groove is the kind of stuff I really detest right now. So it would have been fine and fresh in 2000, but I first watched that film in 2021. So I was like, oh no, this is everything I hate in everything. I think, like, Atlantis and Treasure Planet, they won't blow your socks off, but they're really fun little adventure movies. Brother Bear has a Phil Collins soundtrack. Home on the Range is terrible. Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, Bolt, all real solid B movies, but won't leave like a huge impression on you. But they're nice little movies.
Yeah, Bolt was good. I forgot about Bolt. He's a good boy.
You start getting back into, like, you know, Princess and the Frog, Tangle, Pooh, Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Big Hero 6, Utopia, and then Moana, when they start firing all cylinders again. It's a
really strong return to form, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, Moana's a good movie. It is a good movie.
All right, Jack, I know for like the last week straight you've been wanting to do nothing but talk about Succession, so here is your platform.
Succession rocks. Did either of you guys watch Succession? I take it the answer is no.
I have watched about 6 or 7 episodes of it. And I was like, I like this, but it didn't hook me, and I haven't come back to it. It's one of those I'll definitely get back around to.
I would say my contention is that it's the best show on TV right now. Since this episode from the last week, I kind of don't want to spoil it on anybody, especially if you guys intend to go back and watch it at some point. But it was just, so there was a death in the show without telling you who it was or what the relation was to any of the main characters of the show. But there was a death in the show.
It's funny, like seeing the social media discourse, I'm like, somebody in Succession has died. I can't work out who or how, but everyone's like, I don't want to talk about Succession, but death, somebody died.
It's probably one of the best portrayals I've ever seen of the death of a character in a show, right? So what they did is the character in the show is known. It's not like a sort of like a kind of B character. It's a character that people would know who watch the show. But what you see is the main characters in the show, you see it through their eyes of them finding out about the death of this person. And it makes it incredibly disorientating. It's like, if you've ever got any kind of bad news or about somebody passing away or something really dramatic happening, you know, you go through so many emotions so quickly. And again, it's completely disorientating. It kind of throws you through a loop to the point where you're like, is this happening? What's happened? You know, how do I deal with this? You know, what do you feel? Like, do you just get super emotional, or do you get like, you know, defensive, or do you get like, you don't believe it, and all of the things that your brain, and it's captured so well. It's like the person that passes away and you don't see them die. So like in so many TV shows, if there's like a big death scene, isn't there? There's like a dramatic moment right before someone says something. Like, have you guys ever seen the movie Meet Joe Black? I'm just thinking of the most extreme example of this, where they like have this sort of loving embrace and then walk away from each other, and then he gets run over by not one car but two cars. You know, there's always the big death moment in a show or a movie, and you know, you're going in tight on the character, you know, you're seeing them pass away, you're seeing the people around them, all of this stuff. But we don't get any of that. We get like a blurry shot of the person, and then all it is people on the phone being notified about it, and then you're seeing their reactions in real time and live, and you're following them through, and it's like a sort of half an hour uninterrupted of TV this week of just these characters having to deal with what the implications of this person not being there anymore means, and how, you know, everyone around them, because obviously they're like uber rich, you know, the show Succession is about an incredibly wealthy family. I'd say Murdoch-esque, if I had to describe them.
Or of course they say McMahon-esque.
Yeah, McMahon-esque is true. Yep, you know, rich old doofus and his stupid children is very McMahon-esque. So
I'm the first person in the world, Jack, to compare the recent Vince McMahon dynamic to Succession. That's an original thought.
Yeah, unfortunately, Logan Roy, he hasn't got a creepy mustache. He's just got a sort of a nice, well-formed goatee. And I would rather spend 1 second than any time with Brian Cox than any time with Vince McMahon. Let me tell you. Anyway, so it has the quality of like the characters in the show all being like dislikable in their own sort of unique ways, but strangely relatable, because you're seeing kind of all of their most intimate moments. It's something that you don't really get to see with like people of this level. Often really rich people keep themselves to themselves a lot of the time, unless they're doofuses who run social media websites and want everybody to pay attention to them all the time. Not naming anyone in particular, you fill in the gap yourself. But you get this weird, not like a affection for the family, but you get this sort of like weird, you know, feeling of like you want to see what happens, like you can't look away sometimes when they're doing awful things, and you just kind of want to see the outcome of it. And it's weird to have a show where a lot of the central characters have such dislikable qualities, you know. Even in things that are extreme, like The Sopranos or kind of Breaking Bad or whatever, there's like a main central character who does shitty things, and maybe a couple of people around them that are similar, but there's still people that you can anchor onto who are like the nice normals. Whereas in Succession, like it's mostly 90% of the people in the show are absolute dickheads, and there's like a few normal people sprinkled in, I think, just to contrast what it's like. Cousin Greg, for instance, is one of my favorite characters in early Succession, because he's pretty much the audience of just seeing all of this mayhem go on and get swept up in a lot of it, unfortunately, as it goes on in later seasons. But yeah, this episode was just so brilliantly executed. I've never seen a more accurate depiction of what it's like when you get like really extreme bad news and the effect that it can have on you, and playing out, you know, having different people within the main family and seeing their reactions, and playing out the kind of the different personality types to bad news. And it's just so well executed and acted. In particular, Sarah Snook is just incredible. Like her acting in this episode, it's kind of like, right, well, she's going to win an Emmy, I think. But you never know, because that's quite a competitive category these days, the best like female actress in drama. So I don't know, but yeah, Succession it's in its last series, so that we're up to 3 episodes in season 4 by now, and this death in the show is gonna basically be the storyline essentially for the rest of the series, I think, and how everybody kind of reacts in and around it. But it's just brilliantly written, brilliantly acted, tight. The casting is perfect, and I'm fully on board and fully in love with it. And you've got a few weeks now if you want to catch up with it, and then kind of get on the hype train for the next few weeks as it kind of all bears down, and you see the discourse and the commentary play out live in public. But yeah, Garrett, I mean, I'd wholly recommend you to get back on the train if there's any influence that you can take from this episode of the podcast, because I just want to talk to someone about it. I feel like no one I directly know watches it, and it's really frustrating. So yeah, Succession, go watch that.
You should just type Succession into the Twitter search and then just start randomly DMing people that are talking about it.
Well, just start replying. Just be there. I am a bit of a reply guy on Twitter, but mainly because I like to, but I only follow 100, 200 people, so I just like replying to people that I know and their opinions, but I'm not that guy who's going to go and reply to a whole bevy of random people. That doesn't just can't be bothered with that. Maybe I can just read their tweets, Mark, and pretend they're my friends. How about that?
Hey, you can't beat a good parasocial relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need real ones.
Watch the show, Garrett, please.
Because as I said, I did watch I can't remember, a few episodes of the first season anyway. And listen, I'll get to it.
Last week, I didn't, but Dave and Jack spoke a whole bunch about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I won't be seeing it till next Tuesday, but in the meantime, Garrett, you have seen it, so it is your turn for your takes on what is now the most successful video game movie of all time.
Yeah, like the financial success of it kind of took me by surprise. Not that I expected it to flop, but if you had said, will this be the best animated opening weekend of any movie ever? I'd be like, no, not a hope. And it was the best animated movie opening weekend ever. This film has made a lot of money this film has made more money than the Ant-Man movie has made in a week.
That is, well, I mean, I feel like that speaks as much as a sort of a damning slant on MCU and I guess superhero films as a whole at the moment.
Yeah,
but we've already had that conversation,
and we will probably have it at least 17 times more because they're going to keep making those movies. But yeah. I think Jack and Dave covered the high level points last week. It's a children's movie. It's a movie for children. If you are one of two categories, if you're under the age of 12 or a big Mario fan, you'll have a great time with this movie. Because this movie is made with a reverence for Mario that is utterly joyful, and you will sit there being that's the Captain Toad music. I am very happy right now. Or Luigi is wandering around a spooky woods as a little bit of the Luigi's Mansion music plays, and he does the Mario. And that's just that's all I want out of this movie. Those little moments of Mario fan service are an absolute delight. And then because I went to a 1 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. Saturday afternoon showing of this movie, which, as you can expect, was jammed full of children having the absolute time of their lives. There are so many kids for whom this will be their favorite movie, and their parents will absolutely hate the number of times they have to watch it. It's a joy for those categories of people. Is it an interesting piece of art? No, not even remotely. It does not have a single theme. Well, it has one theme, which is Mario is slightly unsure of himself, and by the end of the movie, he is slightly more sure of himself. And that's it. That's the only character arc. That's the only story arc. The rest is just Bowser kidnap princess fight. That's all they want. That's Mario. And as much as Dave stressed, it's an Illumination movie, which it really is. What really struck me is I think it's a Shigeru Miyamoto movie more than anything else. In this movie is solely concerned with the next little thrill around the corner. That's all it is for 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes of little thrills. And that's so central to Miyamoto's game design. The guy who is I don't care about story, I don't care about characters, I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want my things to surprise people and bring them joy. And that's what this movie kind of sets out to do. The closest it gets to being cynical, I think, is probably the licensed music choices, which are very, very on the nose, very popular songs on Spotify. But then you just get the score of the movie, which is just joyfully incorporating all of the Mario themes. Finally getting some Nintendo music on Spotify, by the way, in the most roundabout way imaginable. It took them making a movie to get some of the Super Mario Bros. Theme on Spotify. But yeah, I'd listen. It's, as I said, it's not an interesting piece of art, but you will have a tremendously fun time at it. That's which is the reason I can fully understand why critics hated it. It's like there's nothing like interest. There's no themes. There's nothing to sink your teeth into other than like a little roller coaster ride. So if you have like no reverence for Mario or you're not a child, you will come away thinking, God, it's just a kids movie. It's just a kids movie. It is just a kids movie. But I do think that's ultimately why audiences have enjoyed it, because it is just a little roller coaster ride that does not stay its welcome and has made a ton of money, and there will be multiple more of them.
I was going to ask, because I forgot to ask this last week, and I guess I can ask the question now, because one of the things certainly that I haven't heard much or read much about in terms of the review is in regards to like the actual kind of dynamics of the relationships between characters. Like how much do they play into Mario and Bowser, or Bowser and Princess Peach, or Mario and Princess Peach, or Mario and Luigi, like those dynamics that, as limited as they are in terms of the storytelling that exists within Mario video games, like how much do they actually kind of like try and flesh those out within this? I'm going to presume not a lot, but is there much there within those dynamics at all?
There's little bits, like there's a lot between Bowser and Peach. Not even directly. There's a lot in Bowser about Peach, I think. Is probably the best way to put it. Yeah. like Bowser doesn't give a shit about Mario in this movie. The only reason he wants to kill Mario is because he thinks Peach might have a crush on Mario, and he is jealous. That is his only beef with Mario in this movie.
As I said, my favourite reveal was when he was sort of staging his evil plan, and he had like all the Koopas around, and then reveals that his big evil plan is not to destroy the Mushroom Kingdom, but simply to marry Princess Peach. And everybody's stunned silence when he says it is, one of my favourite jokes in the movie, I think.
Yeah, and Chris Pratt is perfectly fine.
He's alright, isn't he?
He's not just doing Chris Pratt. It's like 80% Chris Pratt, but there is a little affect there. And two, you will watch this movie and you'll forget it's Chris Pratt, which I think is as good a compliment as you can give, unless you're really like, oh, it's Chris Pratt, unless you get really focused on it. But yeah, it's a perfectly good Mario. There's nothing wrong with it.
All right, well, we can come back here for round 3 next week when I've finally seen this. I think my plan is, before I go and see this, probably maybe on like Monday, I'm going to watch the 93 Mario Bros film, because...
Why?
Well, I guess within the last 6 months, I've watched Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, so I do feel like I should, round off the trifecta with Mario Bros.
I've still never seen that 93 Mario Bros. Movie.
You should treat yourself sometime, Garrett.
It's Bob Hoskins.
So whenever we start a Patreon for this podcast, that is what we should start with.
You do realise that Bob Hoskins is the unofficial actor of Link to the Cast, right?
God bless your soul.
Yeah. R.I.P. to a
Garrett, you got one other thing on the docket this week, and I quickly Googled up what this was, and I refuse to believe that Rob Lowe is nearly 60. That's what I'm going to say before I actually introduce you to what this is. But you've been watching a TV series called Unstable.
In fairness, Rob Lowe's face is still in its 20s, so
it's just disgusting how young this man still looks.
Yeah, it's one of those that makes like logical, intuitive sense based on how long he's been around and in things. It's like, I guess it makes sense that he is in fact old. But then you look at his face and you're like, no, he is at most 45.
And even then, it's a very good-looking 45.
Yeah. So this is Unstable, a Netflix show starring Rob Lowe and Rob Lowe's son, John Owen Lowe. The whole premise is that Rob Lowe is this super successful tech founder, super biotech genius, and his son doesn't want to live in his shadow, but then Rob Lowe's wife and his son's mom dies. That's how moms work. And Rob Lowe kind of starts spiraling into a mess. He's completely unstable. That's where the name of the show comes from. So they bring his son in because his unstable mindset is threatening their big company, and he's being forced out and all that kind of stuff. It's a Netflix sitcom. I'm kind of despairing at the state of comedy these days, because I watched some of the Blockbuster show on Netflix, which has such a good cast top to bottom, and it's absolutely terrible. It's one of the worst shows you'll ever watch. There's not a single laugh. I'm watching How I Met Your Father at the moment, the sequel to How I Met Your Mother. Also very bad. No jokes. You will not laugh once. And this is more affable. It's more it's better constructed than those other two shows. But if you were to say how many times will you laugh in the 8 episodes of this series, it's like 2, maybe 3. There's some okay jokes. The most interesting thing is like this is an 8-episode series that tries to like cover off what would traditionally be a 22-episode sitcom like storyline. So there's like a love triangle between Rob Lowe's son and 2 of the people who work in the science lab, and like they blow it off and move on and pay it off within like 4 episodes, and these are like 20-30 minute episodes, so like they're blowing through these stories, and they just do not work whatsoever. Rob Lowe's son has a bit of charm to him. He's not bad. I love the way that like the whole thing about him and about like this show is like, oh, I want to get out from under the shadow of my father, and I will do that by doing a Netflix show with him. That is the route out. But listen, if you want to be a nepotism kid, go for it. You might as well. It's your only route into actual fame potentially. Should you watch it? Probably not. You can blast through it in 4 hours, so it's probably like lazy Sunday afternoon background viewing. You might enjoy it, but there's nothing special, and comedy is dead. That's my take.
I was just thinking of like the last sitcom that I watched. I was like, oh, this is great, and I can't really think of anything.
Because there's the increasing trend from like the middle of the last decade to now, where there are a lot of comedies that are actually secretly dramas. Yeah. You know, you had stuff like Atlanta and like Master of None on Netflix that kind of pushed comedy in that direction, where it's like it's a comedy but it's actually serious.
Yeah, and like Ted Lasso, I suppose, is a bit like that, but it's still a good comedy. I think that's probably the one that I would say at the moment. Shrinking has a bit of that element to it as well. Weird that like Apple TV, and specifically Bill Lawrence and Apple TV, are like providing the best sitcom-y stuff at the round at the moment, I think. But I don't know if either of you have ever watched either of those shows.
No, and I had a real bad headache one night, and I was like, I cannot sleep. I'm going to watch the first episode of Frasier. And I laughed more watching that first episode of Frasier than I did this entire dumb Rob Lowe show. And I'm just like, where have we gone wrong? Where'd comedy go? Maybe because the American right is always like, comedy is dead because they can't make like homophobic jokes anymore. Maybe they're right though. Maybe comedy is dead. Maybe there's no more jokes. Maybe we've run out of them. Have we told all the jokes? Have we run out of jokes?
Is it like music where like it's just recycled all the same? You know, there's only 12 notes, therefore there's only so many ways you can arrange them, kind of thing.
And like there is a thing to like watching this Unstable and watching the Blockbuster show. It's like those are the most network sitcoms you'll ever see in your life. Those are shows you would have seen that would have been tried to like launch off the back of Big Bang Theory as like their lead in, and would have flopped and been cancelled after 2 years. So it's really weird to watch Netflix, who originally like positioned themselves as, we are the creative freedom place, we are the place that's doing the opposite of what networks are doing, to now being like, we have a star in Rob Lowe, we're going to do a star-led sitcom that's not very good, which is like, that is the pinnacle of networks. That's what networks built their bread and butter on. It's like, get a star, shove them in a show. Didn't really work out what the show was meant to be or whether it's meant to be good, but we got Rob Lowe, so will you watch Rob Lowe? That's like network stuff, and like that's what Netflix is now. And it's so weird to see them over the course of the last decade move from like we're the outliers here, we're the innovators, we're the disruptors, into just being the establishment producing like completely forgettable content that would have been on network TV 10 years ago.
Do you know what's mad?
Sorry, Jack, you first.
Yeah, 10 years ago, NBC had on at the same time The Office, Parks and Recreation, Community, and 30 Rock. They were all on at the same time. Those 4 absolute titanic sitcom shows. And that was a decade ago. Yeah. What's gone wrong, Garrett?
I don't know. As I said, I do think part of it is that pivot toward comedies are actually secretly serious. Which I think has taken some of the comic talent out, making like actual art. Like it's not that those shows are bad, but it's just they're not going for jokes in the same way a lot of these like actual sitcoms are. It's like, we just want to make you laugh, and occasionally we'll make you like feel something, but we just want to make you laugh. And like there's more TV being produced than ever. There should be good comedies. There's no excuse.
Did you remember, Jack? It was the American episode that Screenwipe did. And I can't remember who it was exactly. It was like some sort of network executive or whatever. And they were talking about with American comedies or American like sitcoms that the ones that are good and the ones that people remember are typically the ones that should never have actually been, never either have been made or were accidentally, like, you know, just they're the ones that the executives kind of take the eye off the ball and then they kind of slip through, and then you get like the really like popular ones, and the ones that they really actually focus on that they're trying to make are all the terrible ones that no one actually cares about. And I just wonder if that's kind of a similar, and obviously that was kind of focusing more on like cable TV, and you know, we talk about Netflix and this kind of, we should be in a position where we have that much more creative freedom, but I wonder if that just still kind of is the same thing now, but instead of it being to do with like cable TV, it's whatever Netflix executive, whatever their kind of idea on what comedy is, they're seeing something that obviously, you know, the rest of us are like, this is fucking trash. And I don't know, maybe it's just on the whims of a certain bunch of people that just have a very different idea on what comedy is to the rest of us.
Well, yeah, there's that, and I've mentioned it before, but there's a scene in the brilliant HBO show Barry where Barry's like main romantic interest creates a show, like a really serious kind of gritty drama that's like really kind of, you know, highly rated and stuff, but they cancel the show almost immediately based on the algorithmic selection of the of like their streaming app, because apparently it didn't hit the right taste clusters. And there's this whole sort of, you know, meeting that clearly Bill Hader has built off the back of and written off the back of having multiple meetings about this sort of thing and having heard people's experiences. But I think a lot of shows now, just before they even get a chance, even stuff that gets on and made just gets the legs cut out from underneath it before it even gets an opportunity to grow. Think about how off-pace the first, you know, the two of the shows I mentioned, how off-pace the first series of Office and Parks and Rec were. They weren't good. They didn't know what they were as shows. Now, if that went onto Netflix, people would watch it and go, that's not that good, and then it would get cancelled because it doesn't hit the right taste clusters, because the algorithm is telling you to cancel it, and people won't relent. People are still trying to campaign to save, is it Warrior Nun, which was a show on Netflix that everyone seemed to really, really like, and they were just like, no, we're going to cancel it. And there'd been active, like, you know, campaigns to try and save this show, and no one's listening. No one seems to care about trying to save it or thinking that it's going to make any money. So I just think as well, like, creatively, people aren't even getting the chance now, because immediately it will be some sort of algorithmic ratings based decision that will just cut people's legs out from under them when they're trying to get one of these shows on TV.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about watching this. It's like, you know, there's good constituent parts here. One, Rob Lowe, very good sitcom actor, very well established as a very good sitcom actor. So like there's the parts here for a good show that could find itself in season 2, but it won't get one. It just absolutely won't. It will positively not get a second season, because, as you said, that's just not how Netflix works anymore. And like 10 years ago, like, well, because I did a master's degree in economic science heavily based on like data, and like the big thing 10 years ago was big data. You know, big data is going to change the world. We're going to make the most informed, best decisions imaginable, because we'll have these comprehensive data sets where we'll understand behavior and we'll understand what's happening better than anything we've ever done before. And in the 10 years since, like, it is true that we have more data than we've ever had before. But I think what we've only proven is that we have no idea how to both process and understand that data. So that, like, what we see in Netflix, what has happened to Netflix over the last decade is, I think, like, that big data approach has pushed them out of making content people are willing to pay to watch, and increasingly producing content that they will simply watch, which is the reason that you get like lots of murder mystery stuff, lots of like true crime. It's like cheap, affordable content that people will watch. Ultimately, will they give you money to watch it over time? No. But if you put it on the service they have, they will watch it. So I think that's the trap they've fallen into. Like, it's like people watch X, but they don't measure how much people care about X. So then they just cancel all these shows, because they didn't find an audience straight away, and then push all the money into true crime, push all the money into cheap, like what you would have called cable TV content, that, like, from a decade ago. Again, like, they're just making all the same stuff. It's so weird to watch happen, and I do think it's just like bad data decisions.
Is there any different from like 10, 15 years ago where we had the upswing in like reality TV shows? Like, that you couldn't fucking... change the channel and you'd fall over a reality show about some fucking random family in Atlanta, Georgia or whatever, and you flooded the market for, I mean, it's still a problem now, but I don't think it's as excessive. So, you know, if it wasn't that, it would be something else. You get that kind of cycle, and that goes with every kind of genre, every form of entertainment, where something hits for whatever reason, and then you get 1,000 different variations of it that either didn't understand what the kind of what made the original work, or just the market becomes oversaturated and no one wants to watch anything because we get tired of it and we want the next kind of big thing.
Yeah, I think both the points you just made are good. Garrett's one specifically, people misusing and misinterpreting what data tells them is such a massive problem. There are some people that are just ignorant, Garrett, and then there are some people that willfully misrepresent what data is telling them just to get their point across, and that's the real scary facet, I think, in all of that. And
welcome to right-wing grifter territory.
It's not even just right-wing grifters, you know. It's just like
if you work at any corporation, you'll see someone point to data. It's like no, you don't understand what's that, but it's like, nope, that's what the data says. It's like, fucking goddamn it.
No, it's not what the data says. It's like, it's a very, you know, specifically,
it's very selectively said the data says.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's not the nuance. And do you know, another thing people don't like as well is black and white, is shades of grey. Everyone wants black and white. They want a data point to tell them a thing that they can make a decision off. They don't want, okay, yes, this is one factor, but here, if you look at these other things, you can see that there's this, that, and that are also contributing factors. By the time you said that to somebody in an office, or like, you know, someone senior in a company, they just want to hear one thing that is ultimately leading to the decision that they would make, and they don't care about anything else. And because maybe they don't have time, you know, maybe that's just how modern corporations work. Like, everybody just wants one thing, and we have so much data now that it is incredibly easy for super selective people to just pick out one thing, present it to someone senior, and then boom, decision made, thing over. And it happens, and it stifles a lot of specifically creative industries, because you have two types of data, right? You have structured data and unstructured data. Structured data is really simplistic, like just like numbers. It is more black and white. You can decipher things more easily from it. Unstructured data is things like, you know, someone tweets about how much they love a show, right? And there's words in there that you can, you know, build a word cloud and say how often the word happiness and what's the name of the show, unstable, are used in the same thing, or, you know, shit and unstable are used in the same tweet. And, you know, you can make arguments from that, but it's very, very difficult, you know, to develop something that is getting a true sentiment and a true feel for how much someone cares about something with data in that format. And unstructured data, we don't have algorithms really good enough right now to kind of tell you what people think and feel about things. We just have something that picks out a few words and say whether it's positive or negative when they're building a word cloud, and that sucks as well.
Yeah, when you're walking into like Mr. Netflix Greenlight, being like, oh, this is cheap and people watch it. Oh, good. Yeah. That's all they need to hear. It's like, this is cheap and people will watch it. And then you're like, well, we're going to start charging more for Netflix soon. It's like, oh, it'll be fine. People will still pay for the cheap content. It's fine.
Will they? Will they really? I don't know.
No, they never will. They will never pay for cheap content. They will watch it mindlessly when it's on TV when flicking channels.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting wider discussion about where we are when it comes to streaming platforms. Does Only Murders in the Building count as a sitcom, Garrett? Because that's quite nice.
Yeah, I guess so. That's one of those weird multi-genre shows that you can't really put in a box, isn't it?
Yeah,
a little murder mystery, a little comedy.
But the whole time, mate, I've been trying to rack my brains and think of comedy shows that are on TV that I like at the moment, and all I can really think of is like Ted Lasso, Shrinking, and Only Murders in the Building, and there's not a lot else.
Yeah, especially when you're thinking like straight comedies, just like jokes. Yeah. Give me jokes. There's not a ton of good ones. A lot of bad ones.
No, can't even watch
like,
Rick and Morty anymore. Fucking hell.
When I was watching Superstore, it's like, this is one of the most like affable 6 out of 10 sitcoms you'll ever watch. And that's like 10 out of 10 now. Because like I watched a bunch of Abbott Elementary, which is getting a bunch of praise, and it's a nice little show, but people are talking about it as if it's like one of the pinnacles of sitcoms. It's like, it's not. It's a nice little show. It's like, it's enjoyable, but it's not like this great home run comedy that's like super funny.
Just imagine Garrett. They just take that on a pull quote. Abbott Elementary, a nice little show. G Kidney 2023.
It's funny, but the intonation in my voice calling that a nice little show versus calling Stray a nice little game.
Yeah.
Two very different ways of saying the same thing.
Are you saying that Abbott Elementary would be a ham sandwich award winner?
It is the Stray of network sitcoms.
Big words. Big words from Kidney.
There you go. That's my review of Unstable on Netflix. I'm surprised we talk more about that than Mario.
What is there to say on Mario, really? That's a nice little movie.
All right, let's rock over to the games, and Jack
host this damn show, will you?
Jack will get your continuing thoughts on PGA Tour from last week, and what's happened between last week and this week.
So what's happened is I've played a really ungodly, unhealthy amount of this game. All of the things that are kind of bothered me about it, I kind of just got used to. It really is, at first, when you play it and you're using your own character, a really deep, really steep, learning curve. Like, it feels like the Dark Souls of golf games. Just like, you know, how you've got to get your approach shots and your distances and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh God, like, do I really have time to put into this? But I'm a sucker, so I did. I kept plugging away, you know, I leveled up my character. Again, probably a lot like you would do in a Souls game. I can hear Sean McGee just furiously shouting at this right now. It's like, oh, you'll put in the effort on that golf game, will you? Yes, I will. Sorry, Sean. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it now. I've kind of got to grips with the way the control system works and understood a little bit how the methods like behind specific club selections and shots, and you know, you can unlock different power-ups, and not power-ups, but unlock different skill sets for your character, which makes, like, you know, approach shots and shots around the green and all that sort of stuff a little bit easier. And you know, I'd kind of played a day or two of it before when we last spoke about it, and I hadn't really got too much of a feel for the gameplay, whereas now I have, and I think it is genuinely very good. I do think there are still things about it that can be improved and updated, like specifically the character generator I think needs to improve. And now I've played for a year of career mode, I feel like the career mode needs a bit more in terms of like your ongoing career, and maybe a bit more variation in terms of, you know, rather than just playing the same schedule every year and having, you know, the everything start over and over again. You could kind of have, you know, previous history and all of that stuff built into it, which isn't necessarily in there. But then, you know, they can only have so many golf courses in the game, so it's not like in real life where you can go to the US Open and have a different US Open venue every year and a different Open Championship venue every year and so on and so forth. But yeah, good game. It is, I think, very much going to become, like, to me, what FIFA is to Dave Ryan, which is like, you know, stressed out, or, you know, just need to chill for a bit and play a video game for half an hour and not really think very much. This is going to be my one of those, I think, for a while. So yes, before the big serious games come out, I still need to finish Octopath though. You know, and I mentioned that because there's someone else that's kind of been back on that train this week, so be very interested to see what he has to say about his return to that game.
That's me.
It is you.
You're not even the host and you're doing segues. What a pro.
No, hey, look, this is a fluid environment, you know, like we're all the host in our own special way.
You, listener, you are also the host.
Yeah, if you scream loud enough right now, we'll actually hear you and pivot to a new topic. Yeah, I've been playing more of Octopath this week, and like the thing that strikes me about that game, in that, well, it's very pretty, lovely looking game. The combat system is so good, I love it, and music is awesome. But there's because the thing, all the characters have what they call a path action, which is they all have their own like special ability they can use in the world. Some can rob people, some can like recruit characters to use in battle. And then some can like inquire, which gives you like a background to like an NPC or a character you're interacting with. And the amount of like detail that goes into that flavor text in this game is like absolutely crazy. Because in each town you can do that to maybe 20 people, and they all have like a 200-word paragraph just describing them and their life in the world. Like you can walk up to a cat in one of the cities and you can do the inquire thing, and they give you like a little synopsis. It's like, the cat is like any other cat. It you desperately want to give you attention, but then it ignores you. It is the pinnacle of cats. All cats are like this. And it's like, that cat is not used for anything else in this game. It's not like a side quest. It's not like an important thing. They just decided to write some flavor text for that cat. And like, there's a scenario where you're breaking out of a prison and you can do it to a bunch of the guards, and you do it to one of the guards. It's like, this guard came into this prison really believing in prisoner rehabilitation. But over the course of their time in this prison, they've been broken down by the system, and they now are some of the most cruel people in the prison. I'm like, again, not an important character, not somebody you will ever meet, not an important part of any story or side quest or anything else. They just decided to throw in a bunch of flavor text for them just because. I don't know why. And it's like, I'm blown away by that. And there's so many characters they do it for, that they write just this little backstory, involve the worlds, like this person loves that person but it's an unrequited love, or this person really wanted to go out into the world and explore but they've got caught in a dead-end job because that's what their father wanted them to do. There's so much like little stories like that tucked away in this game for every single NPC you can interact with, and it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know why they did so much writing for this game. No one would notice if it wasn't there. It does such a cool job of making the world feel like a fully fleshed out place with a bunch of people who have individual stories. It's not just you like mainlining your way through a town and doing the story quest and going to a shop and going to the inn and then moving on. It's like, there's a bunch of people. This is an actual place with people and stories. And I'm blown away by it. Like, completely blown away by that level of detail. Do you have Octopath Traveller takes, Jack?
No, I was waiting for Mark to host a show again. Like, where was he on that one? No, I completely agree. I didn't realize how rich the detail was in it until you started posting all of those screenshots, Garrett, and I was like, wow, because I was just kind of like, I want to play this game, and I kind of follow the characters around their various parts of the journey, and I wasn't getting super like bet into the detail like you have done, but now it's going to make me kind of stop and smell the roses a little bit more, I think, when I go back to it. And like you say, the visuals and the music are absolutely perfect, aren't they? Just classic kind of RPG, everything that you want from it. It brings in great detail. But yeah, I will get back to this game eventually. When I stop playing silly golf and hitting a ball around a golf course for hours on end.
Octopath Traveller needs more golf.
If there was Golf Traveller, oh my boy!
Do you remember when Sports Story came out at the end of last year, and then we all forgot about it?
Well, it was a broken, diabolical mess. So I will go back to it because it's been patched a bunch. But I got soft locked in the first area of that game, so I'm like, well, let's not with this for a while.
Yeah, it's a shame. Golf Story was such a great game, like such a whimsical, strange game. Yeah, I really liked it.
Do you see all the drama about Sports Story?
I certainly did, yeah.
No, what happened there?
So there was a hidden room in the game, which is like, the classic dev room that they hide when you go through a door and out a door and in a door and then through a wall, and you can find the dev room and you can talk to the devs, and it's usually like, we're so proud of this game. So they put that in this game, except you talk to the devs and they're like, hey, how about feature scope, huh? It's like, how about when the dialogue in this game made any sense? How about when we were given no time to QA the game? And like, that's just there. It's like, oh no, this was not a very healthy development. And it was patched out eventually, but it's just like, oh, this did not go well. That's unfortunate.
Yikes. I think that tells its own story, really, doesn't it?
It's kind of more interesting than the actual story of the game itself. But moving on, and Garrett, you've also got on here Final Fantasy II, and I remember, and I was listening back to the podcast we did a while ago where I was talking about Final Fantasy, and that I was going to plan to kind of blitz through all of the Final Fantasies, and I still haven't finished the first one. So sadly, while I wish I could have kind of takes with you on Final Fantasy II, I'm not there yet. But please do let me know whether it's worth playing.
Yeah, because last time I was on, I finished Final Fantasy 1. I'm actually playing through Final Fantasy 3 at the moment now too. But Final Fantasy 2...
Is this... You did the NES version, right? Or the Famicom version?
No, God, no, I'm not a psycho.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh, because I was going to have to question your sanity if that was the case. So, good, glad, right, cool.
I'm doing the pixel remasters, which are very nice versions of the game that play much faster and autoplay when you want them to. And are also coming to console next week, so this is particularly timely. They're coming to Switch and PS4 next week. But yeah, Final Fantasy II is in that weird era of NES games where they didn't know what sequels were. Like video games did not have enough sequels for people to lazily churn out sequels. So you got games like, Mario 2, both versions, like the Mario 2 in Japan, which is called the Lost Levels over here, which is like a really hard expansion pack almost for the original Mario. And the Mario 2 that came out in the US is Doki Doki Panic, which is just like a completely different game that plays completely different to Mario, and it's super weird.
And it fucking rocks.
Yeah.
Right? That is what's crucial. It rocks.
The thing that I always find funniest about that is, like, obviously it wasn't a Mario game. It was a game they turned into a Mario game after release in Japan. But there's a bunch of stuff like Shy Guys, which are in the Mario movie, come from that game, just yoinked out of Doki Doki Panic. Birdo, yes. There's a bunch of stuff from those games that actually made it into broader Mario lore, which is kind of funny. Like, look at Zelda 1 to Zelda 2 is probably the best example of, like, Zelda 2 is a completely different game.
Have you ever played that fucking thing? It's horrendous.
I have played 10 minutes of Zelda 2 maybe like 15 times in my life. I'm like, am I wrong? No, that game is just stupid and unplayable without a guide.
It's miserable. It is utter. It's more miserable than the original Link to the Cast, because at least with the original Link to the Cast, Link to the Past, fucking Legend of Zelda, what am I on about? Well, at least with the original Legend of Zelda, it's within the trappings of what you expect from a Zelda game, where that second one it's kind of all over the place. It kind of thinks it's a side-scrolling platformer, and it's not. It doesn't work. And it obviously has all the issues with the original in terms of not knowing what the fuck to do.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe it'll be playable with Switch Online with like save states and rewind. That might make... Nope. Still unplayable. Still a terrible unplayable game. So it's in the year of, like, sequels are weird things on the NES. So you play Final Fantasy 2, which is a lot closer to like a conventional sequel than the games we just mentioned. But they do this what is on paper a really interesting idea, where, like, for most RPGs you've ever played, when you get an amount of experience, you level up, and then your stats go up just based on like a random number generator. You gain 5 attack, you gain 2 in health, you gain 3 magic, move on. Whereas in this game, after every battle, your stats might change entirely depending on what you did in the battle. It's like an actual RPG on a level that I don't think any other RPG has ever tried to be. So, like, if you use magic a lot in that battle, you'll gain magic points, you'll gain MP, you'll gain magic power. If you, like, attack a lot, you'll gain attack power. If you get hit a lot, you'll gain defense and you'll gain health. So, like, it's this, on paper, really cool system that adapts to how you use each character and applies stats accordingly. There is one fatal flaw in that system. Because when you get hit, your health and defense goes up, you can just attack yourself. And after every battle, your health will go up a bunch, your defense will go up a bunch. It'll be very unkillable very, very quickly. So it's like, on paper, a really cool, interesting system they implemented there. And like, maybe if they literally just took out the thing where, like, if you attack yourself, it doesn't change anything. It might be a system that would be interesting in a game or in an RPG today, to actually have that kind of like responsive system where it's like you don't just pick a job, you actually, how you use the character affects how that character grows, it's a really cool idea, especially for a game that was released in I think 1990, 1989, around then. It's a really ambitious and thoughtful, but they didn't think through the whole thing that, you can just attack your own characters and level up really, really, really fast. But it's a cool system, but it's mostly just another Final Fantasy. They have this like password system in the game as well, where when you're talking to people, you can be like, you can learn a phrase from them and then use that phrase to like get an interaction out of somebody else, or use it to move up on the story. But usually by the end of the game, it's just like you learn a phrase and then you say it to one person and it moves on. It kind of ultimately becomes kind of pointless. But yeah, Final Fantasy 2, cool little game. More ambitious than it probably should be, but the system ultimately doesn't really work. I will continue.
Did they do more in terms of a story? Because from what I remember of FF1, it's just, you are the 4 heroes and there are some crystals, go save the day.
Yeah, there's a little lore town in FF1 where there's like a circle of mages, and you talk to them and they're like, here's some lore for the game. That's all. But yeah, there's like a full story in FF2 where you play as named characters, that like they're actual characters that have, you know, some degree of personality, not a ton of personality, but so it's not just because in FF1 you're nameless, faceless mage 1 and warrior 2, and you give them whatever names and they don't talk. Whereas they're actual characters in FF2, and there is like full on story. You get a bunch of for most of the game you only have 3 regular party members, and then they kind of give you a regular rotating 4th, most of which die dramatically, which is great. This FF2 loves killing off people. It's great fun. People die every like hour or 2 in that game. It's tremendous. So yeah, there's an actual story. There's stuff going on in this game. Listen, it's just that there's like this rebellion going on, and you're kind of fighting against the Empire. It's nothing fancy, but there's a story.
I was going to say, Garrett, what you just described with the system is actually very akin to effort values in Pokemon.
It is, yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, there's like a capped out limit with that in Pokemon, so you can't just do that and get like super OP. You still have to train and stuff. But yeah, there's the sort of effort values behind the individual values in Pokemon is probably like a hidden thing that you only really know if you're super deep into kind of Pokemon metagame. But yeah, maybe they stole that from Final Fantasy. Who knows? Maybe they did. Yeah, and like in Pokemon, it is much more hidden. Where like. Oh yeah! In this game, you will work out. It's like, oh, I'm getting attacked and my defense is going up a ton. Oh, whereas in Pokemon, you're like, why is my Pokemon super weak? What's going wrong here? And you're like, oh, you need to get the EVs and IVs, and you know the base stats aren't that great in the first place. And the game tells you none of that. And well, there's some of it's like, we'll rate the quality of your Pokemon, and it's like, it's good. It's like. Yeah. And like the average person has no idea, because there's usually a person in the game that does that, and you're like, what does that mean? Yeah, I mean it's more obvious now. Like they have in the last few Pokemon made it a lot easier for you to see that. But yeah. In previous games they were just like, hey, your Pokemon's great, and you're like, thank you. And if you're the average person, you have no fucking concept as to what that means. This, you know, if you've got like a full IVs Pokemon, they're like, this is the best your Pokemon could be. You're like, I know, I called him Fred. Like you wouldn't have a clue if you were the average person. So yeah, well. Maybe they nicked it from Final Fantasy. I
never got into the gimmick of renaming my Pokemon characters. I always just left them as then like what their names were.
Yeah, I don't nickname Pokemon that much either. I don't know.
No, neither do I. We're not individuals. That's what we're learning. We take the corporately accepted names.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know, like, Jigglypuff called like Martin. Like that doesn't sound right to me. Who the fuck would do that?
So naturally, Garrett, you'll be buying the Switch port next week, right?
As if I haven't already. They became available for pre-order today, and they have been pre-ordered.
Do you know what we never got? It was how much money Garrett spent on the Wii and 3DS shops before they shut down a few weeks ago.
Oh, a dangerous amount, because you were mentioning there is a limit on the amount you can add to your Nintendo account every day. I think it's $250 you can add to your Nintendo account on a daily basis, which I assume is like a fraud thing. I don't think it's like we don't want to take your money. It's probably a fraud prevention thing. But yeah, I added 500 and I think I spent most of it. So
wow,
Jesus.
It was mostly buying like the stuff that will get stranded on 3DS and Wii U. I wasn't like, I need to own games that I can either buy physically or play elsewhere. It's a lot of the small stuff, because like stuff like Pushmo or Box Boy, all those games will just go away, and those games are really cool.
Almost.
I spent 3 hours hacking my 3DS and I now have all of those games.
Jail.
Doug Bowser sending you straight to jail.
That's fine, as long as I can play my 3DS in there.
It will run out of battery in like 4 hours.
Yeah, even less than that. It's a pretty old 3DS now.
I mean, we all have Steam Decks, right? We could.
Yeah. Well, again, like there are certain devices that work better on the Steam Deck than others. So
yeah.
So the thing that I have been playing over the last week or so is a game called Tchia, which came out just under a month ago now.
It's nothing to do with like Tchia Pets, is it?
No, it's not. Nothing to do with that. Which is available, as far as I'm aware, it's available on the Epic Game Store for PC, and then it's on the PS4 and PS5.
It's on one of the PS Plus tiers. I don't know which one. Don't ask me. It's on one of them.
Name me the 3 PS Plus tiers.
Never. I will die in this moment. Because I got it for free. It's on one of them.
It Essential, Extra, and Premium, isn't it? Something like that.
You're the only one that knows, Jack.
I know because I called an episode of the show after them once because we talked about it and saying how dumb they are. But in saying how dumb they are and then naming the show that, I ended up remembering them, I think. So, damn it.
Yeah, I played about an hour of this too, Mark.
Yeah, so one of the things going in that I'd read and heard about this thing is that it is a little bit of a Breath of the Wild adjacent. It certainly like borrows themes in terms of mechanics and systems from Breath of the Wild, as many games have done over the last 5 or 6 years or so. So I'm always gonna, that's always gonna prick my ears up, and I'm gonna give it a go. And this has the twist of, or the kind of main theme of this game is that it's focused within an area based off of New Caledonia, which is a Pacific nation, like South Pacific nation.
Yeah, there's a lovely content warning is the wrong way to put it, but like a little message at the start of the game being like, this is what this game is. Like this is a tribute to this culture in this world, and we hope we did it justice, and we hope you'll enjoy it, which I thought was quite nice.
Yeah, and you can very much tell that the hearts are being worn on the sleeve in terms of the development team behind this. I was reading about this today. The founders of the studio, this was their home where they grew up as children. The studio, I believe the team is made up of 12 people. They all went to New Caledonia for 2 weeks to learn about study for the environment, the geometry, the culture. They brought in people that could speak the native tongue, because there are no professional actors that speak that dialogue, so all of the dialogue that's done in that language, they're not professionally trained voice actors, so even not knowing their language, you can kind of hear that it has a little bit of a kind of a looseness to it in terms of the way they speak, but it kind of actually gives it more of a humane feel to it. In some ways, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like the aim is to feel authentic, and I think that helps. And
I think absolutely, not knowing a goddamn thing about New Caledonia, I would say that yes, I think it does come across as very authentic. In terms of the systems that it's kind of leaning on that are Breath of the Wild adjacent, the way that the map works, when you open the map up for the first time, you don't have a whole bunch of different icons on the screen just kind of splurged all over the place. You have to go find the high vantage points that you then trigger the action that then jots all of the icons within that local area. When you open up the map, it doesn't immediately tell you where you are, so in terms of tracking where you are or where you're trying to go, you can put down a single pin on the map, and then you have a compass that you can check, and you can use the compass to navigate towards that thing. But in terms of where you are at any given time, if you go up to certain kind of land points or different kind of things you can interact with, that will then on the map tell you right, that's where you are now. But if you obviously start walking a different direction, it won't tell you where you are there. You have to go to a different point. So for the first kind of half an hour or so, there is a little bit of getting your bearings of trying to figure out how the map works, and as you would with a real map, I'd say. But after a couple of hours, between that and between the way the fast travel works, it gets fairly easy to kind of navigate around. And I put it to you, Garrett, and you'll probably, if you play more of this game, You mentioned a while ago about how the latest Pokemon game has like some of the best open world traversal that you've ever experienced. I think Tchia is up there, if not better, because for a start, the environment's much nicer to look at. One of the key gimmicks of this game is that the character that you play as, she can... I don't know what the term they use. Soul jump into animals, rocks.
Mario Odyssey.
Kind of It's Mario Odyssey, basically, without a hat. So if you need to get from kind of one side of an area to another, you can soul jump into a bird and then fly. You only have a finite amount of energy, shall we say, or soul that you can use, but it can get you fairly far. And across the environment, you have a specific fruit that if you find it, you take a bite out of it and it'll increase your stamina. Actually, no, there's two. There's one for your soul and there's one for your stamina. Because the game also does the Breath of the Wild thing of, your character is basically Spider-Man. She can climb on anything, but you only have a finite amount of stamina. So earlier on in the game, buildings, you're not really going to climb up. But as you find more of the stamina fruit, that becomes much easier to traverse later on. And so you get to the point where between the increase in the stamina and the soul, you're kind of flinging yourself around the environment really quickly. You get to the point where you start to learn songs, and those songs you can then use to like summon, if you want to be a deer, you can summon a deer to then run across the environment. But if you want a bird, you can do that. If you need a fish, you can summon that, because it's a very oceanic area, so there are certain items that are kind of deep in the ocean, so you want to kind of soul jump into a dolphin or a fish or a sea turtle to deal with that.
Do fish have ears? I guess they probably do. Well, I was thinking you play a song to summon a fish, and then in my brain was like, do fish have ears?
I don't believe fish have ears, no.
So how do they hear you and come to answer your song?
No, but because you summon them, they just like, it's not that they kind of come towards you in like a kind of come to Jesus moment. It's like literally you play the song and the thing appears, like you spawn it basically.
How does it hear you?
By the way, there's an article titled "Yes, Fish Have Ears, and they're super cool too." So go and read that if you want to learn about fish ears, everybody.
And if you want to be cool, you can soul jump into a fish in this game. So
yeah, I apologize
there you go.
For questioning Tchia's fish logic. It's airtight.
And also one of the other ways you can traverse as well, and it's my favorite thing to do in the game, is there are a bunch of trees that when you jump on top of them, Tchia will sit into the kind of leaves, the bush, and then you can basically rock yourself back and forward like a sort of just to give yourself a momentum, and then you can fling yourself like pretty far across the environment, which you can then use in conjunction with the glider that you get early on to then glide halfway across the map as well. And it's really fun, really fluid to kind of quickly get yourself from area to area. I really like this game. I think it's very, very pleasant. I think that the overall tone of it is really charming. I will say that there is one particular scene involving the antagonist of this game that I was not prepared for, and it's probably the most. Now, obviously, I'm not going to play stuff like Dead Space and whatnot, so I'm sure there are scenes in video games that are way more disturbing. But I think that the tone of this game and its visual style and what it's trying to do, in conjunction with what this particular scene, what happens in that scene, I think is by far the most distressing thing I've seen in a video game this year. I won't say anything, I won't give spoilers away, but if any of you do get to it, you'll probably know the bit that I'm on about, because I was not fucking prepared for it. Outside of that, though, I think this is a really nice game. It's got a really kind of like, you can just go and do what you want. You've got the main objective. At any point, you can go over to it and you can, continue on with the story of this game. But you've got all of these different icons that you can go and find. You have all of the vantage points that you can go to then find, which will unlock all of the, like collectibles that you can find in a specific area. And I think the way that you traverse across the game makes that very inviting to do. And I think that between that, I think it has a really, really pleasant, just very, obviously very influenced by the culture of the game. I think the music is wonderful. Every time you come across a new area or a new environment, or I guess progress the story along. You end up usually around like a campfire with a bunch of people, and you end up doing a little mini game where you can, it's basically like a kind of Parappa the Rapper or Dance Dance Revolution sort of thing, where you're trying to hit the right notes and whatnot. But all of those songs are very, very pleasant, and it's just a warm hug of a video game. I've sunk probably like 5-6 hours into it. I'm definitely going to see this thing through to the end. As far as I'm aware, it's only about 10 hours long, so I think that's perfect. And yeah, I think this is a really wonderful thing, and I'm glad I've been playing it.
Yeah, I got up to, you go through like the starting area and eventually you hit like a larger city, and that's where I stopped playing. So I think it was about an hour.
Yeah.
There is like, this game is like a very particular thing. And if you hit it in the right frame of mind, I think you'll love it. And if you hit it in the wrong frame of mind, I think you'll absolutely hate it. I think this game will end up being a little divisive. I think I ultimately sit somewhere in the middle. I kind of admire it more than I enjoyed it. I was like, there's things I think are interesting about this game. I also haven't played it much since, so that probably tells you where I am. But yeah, as I said, it's a very particular kind of game that if you like it, you will love it, and if you don't, you will hate it.
I don't think... I think hate would be a bit strong.
I don't know. Like when I jumped on the raft for the first time, they're like, you have to run back and forth between the speed and the direction. I'm like... Yeah, but that's really kind of cool, but also fuck off. Like that's like kind of like the dichotomy of me. It's like, I admire what you're doing there, but also no.
But the thing
cool,
is,
but
like,
also fuck off.
When you first do that, like, you think that the systems in place to make the raft move are far more complex than they actually are. And once you really just clock onto, all right, I just go up to the sail, I push forward to determine how fast I want it to go, and then I just go back to the actual steering part. That's all there is to it. It's not that complicated.
Then it's just pointless, though, isn't it?
No, it's a little bit more intuitive. It's a little bit more engaging.
Make me push forward to go. Stop it.
There
are
Garrett,
things
come on now.
we have perfected in video games that do not need to be fixed. Pressing forward to go is one of them. Just no.
And you do press forward to go.
Yeah,
you just then have to steer by walking back to the steering
and then
part.
You have to run up to stop the speed. When you want to stop, you'll crash into the shore. Like, no, just let me press forward.
Yeah, it's great. I love crashing into the shore. I just fling myself off of it and carry on with what I got to do. It's excellent.
Remind me never
exactly how it would happen in real life if I was steering a raft.
That's what I mean. I will never boat with you, Mark. I may do many things with you, but boating will never be one of them.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
I used to be pretty good in a kayak back in the day. I could handle a canoe.
I was in a canoe
Mark,
once in
I love
my
how
life
the
and
two things you've taken... Mark, the two things you've taken most umbrage on are this game's system of movement and whether or not you'd be good at boating.
I'm fairly good. Sailing I'd be terrible at. There definitely is too much to sailing itself. But give me a canoe and an oar and, you know, I can get myself around a lake.
Master of small vessels.
Damn right.
It's just the hills Mark's dying on today are canoeing and movement. I love it. Little preview of Game of the Year there, maybe.
There you go.
When Mark tries to get Tchia up there and like Garrett's like, no, the movement is bullshit and I hate it.
Tunic 2023, baby.
I am not going to. This is not a Tunic game for me. I think this is very pleasant, but no, I don't think we'll be having Tunic style arguments come the end of the year with this.
Last question: is Christian Carambou in the game? He's the only person I can think of that comes from New Caledonia.
Amazingly, that's not the first time that name has been referenced on this podcast in the last 6 months.
That's true. He does have lovely hair. Anyway,
we had one question this week that came through from Dakota Jones, who is, as far as I'm aware, a noted listener of both this and Days of Thunder. And actually, You've Got to Be Kidding Me as well, as far as I'm aware.
What podcast is that?
Link to the cast.
It's the one you're on, Jack. It's the one we're recording right now.
You've got to be whatting me?
It was mentioned on the last episode that we are all awaiting Garrett's thoughts on the Mario movie, which we've now had. But we also need Garrett's comments on the fact that everyone talks about how they had never played Mario Galaxy 2, which is, yes, I am working my way through it for the first time. And Garrett, I know a while ago you had put a video out about your thoughts and feelings on Mario Galaxy 2, so I'm sure you took great umbrage to the fact that none of us had ever played it.
It might be Nintendo's best game, so yeah. It's a good game. It's like
Nintendo's best game.
It's up there. It's like, what if you took Mario Galaxy, which is a phenomenal
fucking
game,
weighty,
and then made everything about it better? That's what Mario Galaxy 2 is. It's less fluff, less tutorials, less introducing ideas, and more just taking everything from Mario Galaxy 1 and making it better and cooler. That game is so good.
Here's where I support Garrett. I feel like Final Fantasy XII, for the exact same reason, was a brilliant game, and barely anyone played it because it came out right before the console that it came out on just kind of went away, and then it took years and years and years and years for them to re-release it and for people to play it again and go, oh shit, this is great, which is why Mario Galaxy 2 should be on the Switch, so people can rediscover how great it is, or discover it for the first time like us, right?
It was such a bummer when they left it out of that collection. Like, honestly, I think that's, people took issue with like it didn't have enough side things where you can go through a gallery of old photos. I don't care about that. Like, they're cool to have, but I don't care about them. Like, I was much more upset that they didn't put Mario Galaxy 2 in that collection. Come on.
Yeah, it just seemed like a mission for no real reason. Like, there's no way they filled the cartridge with all three of those games. So,
I mean, if they wanted to, they could have done Mario 64, Sunshine, and I don't know, like, just anything else, and then you could have just probably done a Galaxy 1-2 collection.
Because it is one of Nintendo's best games. It's such a good game. How have you not played it? It's so much fun.
Well, you have to understand, because I was trying to really drill into why I would not have played it at the time, and this came out in 2010, and I was either around about the process of moving into my own studio flat for the first time already had, which meant that I had absolutely no money whatsoever, which is why for about a year straight, the only thing I played was Binding of Isaac. So I think that might be part of why I didn't play Mario Galaxy 2 as well. Why I never got to it in years later, I can't speak to, but look, I'm getting to it now, Garrett. I'm playing it now, all right? And I am enjoying it. And I do like that the intro is about half the time of Mario Galaxy 1. Good stuff. Big fan of that.
Yeah, it's funny, like, because Mario Galaxy has all the intro stuff, it has all the Starship Mario stuff, which people like, and I'm just like, I don't care about hub worlds, just give me levels, give me the stuff that's cool about games, get rid of your fluff.
I think part of it is the music in the hub world of Mario Galaxy is it's very, very nice. Da, na, 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 na. It's,
but the Starship Mario theme is even better, and the further you get in, it like develops, and it's like it starts like as a small piece of music and becomes like really big and bombastic by the end of Mario Galaxy 2. It's cool. It's a cool game.
Well, I haven't heard anything yet that's as good as is it the Gusty Gardens? I think it's the Gusty Gardens. I haven't heard anything yet that's as good as that. So, but I'm only about 2 hours in, so we've got plenty of time.
Is there a way you can play without motion controls?
The motion controls are like literally it's just pointer for star bits and flick for the spin, which I think is the least intrusive they could possibly be.
Yeah, because I think
there is like two you're flying a bird and you're rolling a ball. Those are very motion control heavy, but other than that,
and I think with like Wii emulation when it comes to the motion control, like stuff like that, you can map to I think one of the analog sticks, and it kind of does the job. Oh no, I think you can actually I think you can map it to just like a button, and if it's purely just for the purpose of you just need to shake the controller, I think you can just map it to a button.
Yeah, and on Switch, like the Joy-Cons have all that tech anyway, so they could have done it.
I do like just sitting on my ass playing a game.
So it is, you know what, having played a bunch of Wii over the last 2 weeks or so, and even with like Mario Galaxy 2, there are times where I'm having to point that fucking controller at the screen. I'm like, I don't want to lift my arm anymore.
Yeah, I want to be like sort of half lying down like I'm on a chaise lounge, shout out wet leg, just playing a video game. I don't want to be moving my arms. I want both of them to be on the controller, possibly swaddled in a blanket. I don't know. That's how I want to play my video games.
And that's the thing, because I've been bouncing back and forth between Galaxy 2 and Kirby's Epic Yarn, because with Epic Yarn, you just hold it on its side and you hold it like a kind of regular controller. And even still, I feel like we could dedicate an entire episode to that Wii motion controller, because it is a weird controller in a lot of different ways. And playing it again, like the fact that, you know, the buttons are 1 and 2 and plus and minus, and obviously they kept with the plus and minus. But every time it comes up on the screen, press 1 to continue. And it's like, am I holding a phone? What is this? This doesn't make any sense. Am I holding like a remote control?
Well, that was the idea. It was meant to be a remote
obviously,
control.
yeah.
Like, they walked in as like, we want to make it this like a remote control so it appeals to the casual fan, so that they understand it immediately. They look at this thing that relates to the thing they know with their TV and they can use it, which ultimately did turn out to work, but it does
obviously
not make for a good video game controller.
And the thing is, back in like 2006, 2007, we were obviously like wowed by the idea of being able to point at the screen and the motion control and whatnot. But like you play it kind of with foresight, hindsight, or whatever. But you do like hold it at the screen. And you're like, this doesn't feel quite as responsive as I want it to. You know, there is like. It kind of feels like you're pointing at the screen, and then it feels like the arrow on the screen or the movement is slightly slower or slightly kind of bigger. It's something doesn't feel kind of one-to-one in the way that you hope it does, and even the Wii Motion Plus doesn't completely solve that.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, there's a reason it never got better, and that's not because the technology's not there, that's because everybody stopped doing it. Everyone was like, fun novelty, we'll leave that thing behind.
Which is part of the reason I didn't play Mario Galaxy 2. I was just like, Wii? Oh, I'm done with that. I don't play that anymore.
Give me a tablet now.
Yeah. Man, why didn't they bring it out on Wii U? That would have been good.
Well, it is on Wii U.
Is it?
It's in the. It was you can't get it on Wii U anymore, but they released it in the eShop.
Oh, did they? Did they release it on Wii U at the time where I'd stopped playing my Wii U, Garrett?
Jack, go and hack your Wii U.
I am pretty sure the Wii Virtual Console was pretty late in the life cycle, so yes.
Yeah, it's that fucking thing.
Why did Nintendo do this?
Because Nintendo are a weird company.
I know. It never ceases to frustrate and amaze me.
They will announce the Switch 2 in like 6 months, and then 2 days later announce a Mario Galaxy 2 port to Switch. They will do it.
But you know what?
Just the spite
I'll buy it. I will buy it, Garrett, and I will play it.
Hell yeah.
And I will tell you that I think it's great.
It's one of Nintendo's best games.
Yeah, I heard the best ever.
It's up there.
Apparently so.
So much fun. Game is so much fun.
Heard it
we should try and do a top 10 Nintendo games.
There's a lot of games. That would require a lot of
That won't turn into a fist fight very quickly.
Surely that would be called the Top Tendo episode.
Well, hey.
There you go. Hey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, episode 300 is coming up, you know, special episode. Top 10 Nintendo games, and we can all fight each other.
And then we can stop doing the podcast because none of us will make it out alive.
Look, we got through Game of the Year, all right? And that was a particularly contentious year or series of podcasts. So if we can get through that, we can get through this.
Except the winner.
Neon white, god damn it. Anyway, Super Mario, speaking of good music, Super Mario Bros. Theme to become the first video game music in US Library of Congress. The original 1985 film, alongside Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You and Madonna's 1984 album Like a Virgin.
What a whole record.
What a combination of music.
So they're putting 2 individual songs and just one whole record on there.
Apparently so. Are among the defining sounds of the nation's history and culture. It's a bit of a stretch, but all right. To be given places in the US National Recording Registry, the Library of Congress has announced the Super Mario Bros. Music, officially known as the Ground Theme, which is the first time I ever heard of that. I was not aware that's what it actually was called. Written by the young Nintendo composer Koji Kondo, becomes the first music from a video game to enter the registry, which the library called the most recognizable video game theme in history. Which...
Not wrong.
I guess it's that and Tetris, probably?
I think more so than Tetris, though.
Yeah.
I think, because... I think it is. I think more people play Tetris on mute than play Mario on mute.
Maybe. It's probably a 1-2 of those two.
They're definitely 1 and 2 by a lot as well.
Yeah. In all, 25 albums, singles, and other sound artifacts spanning more than a century have been inducted into the registry, yada, 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 yada. But yeah, so this is really cool. This is, the first piece of music. I guess what that means over the next, 5, 10, 15 years is we might start to see other pieces of music. I'd have to imagine at some point, surely, like the Legend of Zelda theme goes in there. Snake Eater, obviously, it just writes itself.
I mean, Snake Eater should be in there already. That should have been in there before that was written. That's how good that song is.
I would like to personally nominate the entire Xenoblade Chronicles 3 soundtrack.
As soon as you started to talk, I knew what was coming.
I
would like to nominate. If Garrett, can I put if I'll give you that if I can put the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack in there as well?
Oh hell yeah, co-signed.
Yeah, okay, sweet. Me and Garrett are going to have a great time in the US National Library of Congress, which is something I didn't really appreciate until this article.
I'm surprised Nintendo aren't like, you can't have a copy of it.
Imagine that. Imagine they just called up Nintendo. They're like, we're going to give you this great honor. And they're like, nah, we're all right, thanks.
Here's a copyright ban. Cheers.
Yeah, exactly. Gary Bowser turns up and just fucking Rochambeau's the lead librarian of the National Library of Congress. She kicks him right in the balls and says, no way, man.
Once again, Nintendo, a weird company.
Yep.
Following...
Just the idea of another man turning up to a place and hoofing in the nuts unannounced has sent me. I'm sorry, I'm a child.
Following reports last month that Rocksteady's Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, killed the Justice League.
Killed the League Justice.
Would be delayed again. Warner Bros. Has made it official, and then some, pushing the Batman Arkham Knight follow-ups release all the way back to the 2nd of February 2024. This does, of course, mark the second substantial delay for the game, which was initially expected to arrive in 2022, before Warner Bros. Made the decision to shift its launch to the 26th of May this year in order to make the game the best it can be. Rumours that Warner Bros. Were having another change of heart first emerged at the end of March, when Bloomberg's Jason Schreier and Windows Central's Jez Corden reported that Suicide Squad was now targeting a later release. After an extended PlayStation State of Play reveal in February was met with a less than enthusiastic reception from fans, with many lamenting its uninspired action and live service trappings. Warner Bros. Has now made the rumored delay official. They say that we've made the tough but necessary decision to take the time needed to work on getting the game to be the best quality experience for players, the company wrote in a statement shared on Twitter. This is, by the time this comes out, we will be just shy of 10 years since this thing was first announced. Or, at least 10 years in development, this thing would have been. I still don't believe that this thing actually is real. I think this thing has just been a troll job since day one. That's where I stand. Until this thing actually hits the shelves, I don't believe it exists.
But Mark, we saw it. We saw the gameplay footage. We saw it.
Nope. That's something else. This just something else. This actual game doesn't exist. It's not real.
Okay. Do we think that's why, though? Do we think because everyone was just like, man, that kind of looks crappy? Do we think that's why they've put it back?
Yeah, because there's like a bunch of people who are like, they're going to take the live service stuff out. They're not. They cannot make those kind of changes in that short of time. But I do think, like, when you watch that showcase, we'll talk about Zelda in a second, where like when you watch something like that, you should be able to like, oh, that's why that thing is cool. There should be at least a thing that you're like, oh, that's what this game is doing. And you watch that entire Suicide Squad the showcase earlier this year, and you're just like, nope, it's just a Destiny. They've just made a Destiny and put a Suicide skin on it. And that's hopefully what they can fix in 9 months, to give it some of its own character and give it some of its own thing, as opposed to just being a Destiny. But I don't know. They should just give up. Can you imagine the people working on this game? They must be...
I can't even. I mean, imagine what the turnaround of people on this game has been.
But like, if you were someone who has been on this game for 10 years... which, as you said, is probably actually not that many people. But can you imagine being just stuck on this one game, looking at this one thing for the bones of a decade?
Sounds miserable. It just sounds miserable. And I feel with this game as well, because Barry was lamenting about this the other day. I don't know if it was in response to this in particular, it might have been, but really just lamenting about the AAA gaming space at the moment. And we've spoken about this before. I know I've definitely spoken about it before. It is just the least interesting part of the video game industry, and has been for some time. And everything about this game, in terms of its presentation, the marketing, the trailers, as you mentioned, Garrett, it is all of the things that I don't care about when it comes to video games. And the thing that the AAA space has doubled down on, because, you know, they're obviously not catering to me. There is an audience that caters to and is obviously very successful. That industry, that part of the industry makes a shit ton of money. So, you know, like, there's something that's happening that's right there. But everything about this, it just feels like this is everything that's wrong with the industry.
It just feels like there's not a single original thought. Like, you watch everything about this game, and I'm sure people have worked very hard in this game, harder than they ever wanted to for a very long time.
Yep.
And you look at the final product, and it just feels like so derivative, so unoriginal, so uninspired. There's just not an original thought, original idea. A thing, like, you watched the 10-minute gameplay showcase of Zelda a couple of weeks ago, where they were like, you can attach a boulder to a stick. And everyone's like, that's fucking cool, you know? Like, people don't want you to super duper reinvent the wheel, but when you watch a showcase of something, you should be able to look at it and go, I think something about this is new and cool. And nothing about this game is new and cool. And nothing about so many games these days is new and cool. It's just regurgitating like AAA tropes to death and RPGizing them until you do not want to see a skill tree for 15 years.
Yeah.
And the thing that I tweeted about this the other day as well is, like, because of how long this has taken to come out, like, this has to be one of the best-selling games of all time for this to break even. And you know, I'm sure there's going to be a whole in-game economy to milk more money out of players as well. But I can't see how this is going to have, like, I do not see this becoming GTA Online. Just that's my hot take. Going to put it out there. You know, I doubt I'm going to get resistance to that. But if anyone wants to take it up with me, you can find me on Twitter at Lithium Project. I just don't see how this is going to reclaim anywhere near the amount of money that's been spent on 8.5 years. And part of, like, you know, among the number of reasons why this thing has been delayed and pushed back and the issues is that for every, like, month extra that this thing is taken to be made and the amount of money that's having to be spent on it, there are, rightly or wrongly, people at the top of the chain of this going, all right, we have to find more ways that we can try and reclaim some of the costs on this, whether it's, you know, 45 different editions that you can buy, or, you know, like day zero pre-order purchases that you get, you know, a fucking statue of Harley Quinn or whatever. The
name of the game is suddenly Monster Energy presents Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
honestly. And so, you know, for everything like that happens as well, that then obviously has to be taken into consideration, that just as easily could then delay the fucking thing as well. So this whole thing from top to bottom, I hope that it comes out. And I guess just for the people that have been working on it, I do hope that there is at least a positive reception for it, because I think that really would be the worst thing, is if this was to come out and it just was shit. Because that I feel is just, for everyone that's had to work on this thing, and again, I'm sure there aren't many people that actually had to work on this thing the whole way from beginning to end, but the idea that you would work on this thing for that long, and then it comes out, and everyone just goes, whatever, which could still be a thing that happens. I could not get into the headspace of someone that has to deal with that, and I would not wish that upon my worst enemy.
You only just wasted a decade. It's fine.
Do you remember when, like, Bachelor's Noodles and Pastas presented Final Fantasy 15, Garrett?
Oh, yeah, the cup noodle stuff. Oh, God.
Yep.
Like the cup noodle side quest.
Yep.
That's good stuff. I'm surprised. Yeah. I'm honestly surprised games don't do more of that. I'm surprised that that's not just all over every game.
Product placement. I guess it is in a way, like, you know, You are like, I don't know, if you have like a sports game, you are advertising like all of the apparel that the sports people wear in it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it becoming more of a thing, because I think as you have more people that exist within the gaming space through the prism of like social, like streamers and that, and influencers and whatnot, and they are more than happy to you know, like, have a giant bottle of Prime walk down the entrance ramp of WrestleMania with them, that I think, you know, that kind of audience is more accepting of that sort of stuff appearing in games, or fucking Monster Energy presents blah blah blah. Like I think for our generation and older, we're just like, get fucked, no thank you. But I can see with a younger generation, they're going to be more just probably ambivalent to it more than anything else.
Yeah, but when you watch a movie where like every car and every drink on a table and every shoe and all of that is sponsored, and that's commonplace. It's in every TV show. It's in every movie now. Like every single one of them has some kind of product placement. We have a surprisingly little amount of it for video games. It does. I would have thought that large publishers would have been more cynical.
Do you know what I hate is when you watch a Sony movie and the characters are using Sony phones, and I'm like, no one uses these phones. Fuck off. Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man would not be using a Sony phone. He would have an iPhone or an Android.
Breaking out his Sony laptop and his Sony camera.
Do you remember BlackBerry phones?
Oh, what a time.
I do. People love the tactile keyboard thing. But yeah, it's aged out, hasn't it? Do you think they'll get a resurgence? Like when they started making so-called like dumb phones a few years ago, yeah. Do you think they're going to have a resurgence of Blackberries where we get like the original looking Blackberry but like with a better screen or something? I
mean, it's probably going to be like some, how like Gen Z all sort of dived into 90s culture and whatnot. It'll probably be some influencer in 5 years' time will find a BlackBerry and be like, hey guys, look at this fucking thing.
Look at this ancient technology I unearthed.
Yeah.
Look, you actually type with little buttons. How weird is this? And everyone's just like, We'll
find a Nokia phone and it's like, when you wanted to type C, you had to hit a button 3 times.
I mean, that was dog shit though, wasn't it?
It is just fucking the worst.
Yeah, like when people are like, oh, I've still got this phone, I don't need another upgrade. I'm like, literally, how do you text without wanting to kill yourself every time?
These kids today, they don't realise how good they've got it.
No, well, but they don't have Snake like we had, at least, which was really good. Last week we were talking about the weather and I was like, this is a middle-aged podcast. This week's equivalent is us talking about old phones. Let's talk about something new and hot and cool.
Yeah, so we had we had the final trailer for Tears of the Kingdom, and the Final Fantasy XVI trailer, is that like, I don't know what trailer, because I haven't watched it. Is that just like the final trailer for that, or what was the deal with that one?
It was a 25-minute like gameplay video, essentially.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was a Sony State of Play.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah, I completely missed that.
But it was way more than I thought we would get.
We'll start with that one then, because I have nothing to add to that. So how was that, boys?
It looks incredible, like graphically unbelievable, like just the vistas and the large scale of everything, and the environments look incredibly detailed and beautiful. The main character's called Clive, which, you can...
Total deal breaker. It's a total deal breaker.
Of all the weird Final Fantasy names that you've had in the past, like Skull and Zidane and Cloud, and it's like, hi, I'm Clive.
His name's Clive.
He's fucking Clive. Dude is named Clive. Motherfucker named Clive. Other than that, it looks incredible. The only thing that I'm still not sure about, just because it looks hacky slashy and I really hate pressing buttons to dodge, is the combat. I don't know how you feel about that, Garrett.
It is very, very flashy. It looks very cool in action. But as you said, if it's like hard, I don't want to play it. Like if it takes effort for me to kill things, instead of like I hit 3 buttons and they do some insane particle effect and the thing blows up, that's cool. But because it's like full, it's Devil May Cry now. Like that's what it is. The game has turned into Devil May Cry, and I'm not sure how I feel about that in a Final Fantasy game. I'm also like my big thing watching these 25 minutes is like nothing about the world or the characters struck me as particularly interesting. Like, aside from his name being Clive, I'm just like, he seems like just a boring man in this world that looks pretty, but has not given me any reason to care about it so far. So that's my base, because like that's the thing I get hooked into for Final Fantasy games, really, is like their sense of world and their sense of place. And I think that's the thing they kind of lost. Like, I couldn't tell you a single name of a place in Final Fantasy 15. Not one. I played through all that game.
I just remember the fact that you had a sweet ass car and you would drive around the environment, but none of the towns stood out as interesting in the slightest.
Yeah, so I want an interesting world. I want an interesting place to explore and interesting characters to explore with it. And nothing about what they've shown so far has really inspired me in that regard. Like the super, like whatever they call the summons now. It's not Eidolons. Is it Icons? Is that what they went for then?
Icons, yeah. Because they had the battle between Ifrit and Garuda, which looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how like they're like, this will play out in real time, and it's like, will it? Or will you just hit like 4 buttons and it's a big sloggy fight? We'll see how that actually plays. But they look cool. They look visually very impressive. Also, to settle on a name for summons, by the way, whether it's summons or Eidolons or Espers or Icons, you can't come up with a new word for every game. What are you doing over there, Square?
I like GFs. I'd like GFs from Final Fantasy VIII. I thought that was cool.
You love your Guardian Forces?
Yeah, I do. And I like anything that I can abbreviate like that. So, I don't have to say like a long, weird word. I can just say, oh, it's my GFs. I'm going to summon Ifrit now, and he's going to do Hellfire.
As you say it, they've had 6 names for these things. Settle on one. But yeah, I agree. It's like visually looks stunning. As is like in the combat, there is so many effects going off. You're like, my goodness. But will it be fun? Not sure. Will it be interesting? Also not sure.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You don't really get much of a feel for the story or whatever. But then I don't know. Are they really going to kind of show all of that right away? Are they going to dip their toe into that in the trailers? I don't think so.
Where did you both stand on 15 at the end?
I think it's good. But
I enjoyed it when I was playing it, but the more I thought about it after I finished it, the more I started thinking, oh yeah, it didn't do that, or that, and yeah, the thing that pissed me off is a lot of the backstory of the characters they kind of like DLC'd away, and apparently they've now added those into the game. I think we were speaking about it a few weeks ago, right, Garrett? And like that's cool, and I might go back at some point and play it, but
you also have to watch like a full actual 90-minute animated movie to get all of the story. Which is
it Kingsglaive or something?
There's a full ass prequel to that game.
I don't care about that. Just give me a story where I can play through the game and learn all of the things.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sounds good in theory. It's like, oh, it's this whole multimedia world, because there was a bunch of shorts as well, and there's the movie and obviously the DLC. It's like, just let me play my game. Stop with all this.
Tell me again how we like Mario Galaxy 2, because it takes about 20 seconds to get started.
Yeah, get out of here with your nonsense. But like, listen, the Final Fantasy has had an identity crisis, I think, since 10. I like but every game has been pretty different from the next since 10, for to varying degrees of effect. So they haven't really settled on an idea of like what Final Fantasy is in like even like the PS3 generation. Never mind, we're on to PS5 now. So we'll see, is this the one? They might have finally hit on what modern Final Fantasy looks like.
12 was good.
And like, I don't hate 13, but it's also, I don't know, I don't love 13.
Oh, I do.
But when you talk about Final Fantasy in terms of it not knowing what it wants to be, do you mean that from the like tone and theme, or do you mean like the systems? Because like
all of it.
Where in that? All right.
Everything. All of the above.
Okay. All right.
Because like there was a lot of what Final Fantasy was up until 10, where it's like it's Hironobu Sakaguchi doing your story, it's Nobuo Uematsu doing your music, and it's your turn-based combat system, and it's a cool world. Like Sakaguchi, Uematsu, all out the door after 10. They increasingly moved away from turn-based combat. Like,
I think it's the turn-based thing. Not being a Final Fantasy expert, I do think it's the turn-based thing that is the biggest. Like, how do we combat that? Because me playing the Final Fantasy VII remake, the way that they try to like kind of have this balance between you can do turn-based and you can do like real combat, and it's like, well, the kind of like action-based combat just feels like a bad Platinum Games game, and I don't want to do that. And the turn-based combat is, I could just play the original Final Fantasy at that point then, or the original FF7.
I did like the combat in the 7 remake. It's the only thing I liked about that game. I didn't like it. But
I didn't like it.
Like 12 is kind of turn-based. I don't really know how to describe that game. It's more MMO-inspired, I think, more than anything else.
Well, the fact that it is turn-based, but you can also set up all of your attacks,
so the game can play itself.
It can pretty much, but within reason, obviously. Like if you face anything that actually has a bit of heft to it, you have to step in and do things. But yeah, I quite like that, because you're almost setting a strategy out and playing it. It's almost like a sort of RTS a little bit, but
it's also because like the maps in that game are so big. Like, you wouldn't want to be interacting with the nitty-gritty of each individual fight. It's nice that you can turn on that gambit system, run through the map, especially in the remake or remaster where you can up the speed as well, so you can literally just blast through them and kill everything. It's great fun.
I played it on the I think it's like ×4 or something speed.
Yeah, it's ×2 and ×4.
I had a great time.
Yeah, you can blast through it. And then 13 had their like weird paradigm system, and you're switching paradigms and you're trying to break things, kind of a pain. And then 15 was like that. It's not even a half step. They said this is like the full. They're like 16 is the first full action RPG for Final Fantasy. It's like 15 exists. That's an action RPG. It does have some like choosy from menus stuff, but every Final Fantasy has some choosy from menu stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. I watch these trailers and I'm not like, oh hell yeah, this is the Final Fantasy I've been waiting for. But also, I'm interested enough to see like, will it be good? I'll play it, and I might enjoy it because like I said, I like 15. I don't have strong feelings about it, but I like it.
I was just let down by it. I just think it had the opportunity to be much better than it was. They really didn't stick the landing on that story in the slightest.
And like, it's been 8 years. It's been a while, so they've had a while to fix everything about Final Fantasy. Hopefully they have.
And 15 didn't even start as a numbered Final Fantasy anyway, did it?
No, it started as that weird one with that name I don't even remember, and then they're like, nah, it's just 15 now, fuck it. Which is basically the attitude. They did show a skill tree in this showcase that did make me once again want to vomit, but hopefully that won't be too intrusive.
Yeah, like an overtly simplistic one as well. Give me a sphere grid from Final Fantasy X I can get my teeth into.
Yeah.
I like a complex skill thing. Something complex that has like real kind of detail to it, but also something I can break as well is what I'm looking for, Garrett. You know what I mean?
That's why you love Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, it is. You can break the shit out of that really quickly once you figure out how it works.
Speaking of a game that it looks like you can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things with, this final Tears of the Kingdom trailer. What is the purpose of a trailer? It makes you want to buy the game. This fucking trailer, if you was not on board beforehand, oh my giddy aunt, this thing looks incredible. And I just can only hope that the game actually sticks the landing, but man, where to even start with this? They packed a lot in this 3.5 to 4 minutes.
If the game doesn't stick the landing from what we've seen, then I'd be genuinely shocked because everything we've seen looks cool.
Yeah, shout out to the person who cut this trailer if this game turns out to suck. It's like, yo, you did a great job here. Because like, there is like the final trailer for Breath of the Wild is, I think, among the best video game trailers ever made. And this trailer is very consciously calling back to that trailer. It's a trailer that rocks. There was a talking point like 2 months ago that or Tears of the Kingdom has been marketed badly. And I'm just like,
that's just by dumb people who have should not be allowed to make tweets or have opinions.
Because like,
it's a terrible opinion.
One, if you look at like every most anticipated game award since this game has been announced, I think Tears of the Kingdom has won, or well, the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, as it was originally called, has won pretty much all of them. Two, why would you want to know more about this game? Like, the sheer joy I think everybody had the first time they saw a dragon in Breath of the Wild, or you're just walking through that map and you're like, that's a fucking dragon. What's a dragon doing in this game? That is awesome, and you should not want those moments taken away from you. And like 3, I think that point is being perpetuated by like the cottage industry of just people who live and die by like breathless speculation based on trailers, and they're just mad that Nintendo was giving them nothing to work with. Because
do you think there's also just a part of it where we've been so like pilled with I guess not so much gaming trailers but like movie trailers where they basically give you 95% of the film within the trailer?
Yeah.
Well, didn't someone sue for being misrepresented in trailers, and now it's like legal precedent that you essentially can't put stuff in a movie trailer that isn't in a movie.
Yeah, because
I'm sure that happened.
There was a whole thing about, it wasn't Endgame, I think it was Infinity War, that had a bunch of fake shots to throw people off the scent. And like Marvel is the exact same thing, and Star Wars is the exact same thing, where like if you search YouTube right after this trailer comes out, you will see literally a million videos being like, here's 5 things you missed in the Tears of the Kingdom trailer, here's what the Tears of the Kingdom trailer didn't tell you. You know, there's just the whole cottage industry of that kind of analysis who is desperate for things to tear apart, and it's kind of a sad way to, like, I don't mind those videos in isolation, but like the people who are like, this game is marketed badly because they haven't given me anything like that to work with. I remember I can't remember the MCU show, but like WandaVision was very much built around like what MCU character could show up, and I think Loki was the same, and people loved their speculation stuff on that. And then one of the shows had none of that, and it's like, it's a bad show because there's none of that, so it can't feed my little speculation cottage industry. It's like, no, it's a bad show because it's a bad show, not because it has none of that. But this trailer fucking rocked though, because it did the thing where it's like there is like 100 shots of cool things in this trailer, but they're all like half a second. So it's just like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? What is that weird Death Star in the sky? Why can you jump into like flying puddles? What is all this stuff? And that is the best way to do a trailer, because you will come away with like thinking just, what on earth is this game?
Yeah, no idea. Can't wait to find out.
And because when they showed the gameplay showcase, people were like, oh, it's the same map. And then you see here, it's like, you really think they spent 6 years making this game not to put new stuff in it?
It looks like the same map, but corrupted in places. Like, it looks like the same map, but some shit's gone down since you were last here. So there are a few locations that look relatively familiar, but then there are a few things where you're like you said, what the fuck is that? What's going on there? And I want to find out, Garrett, immediately.
It's a very good trailer. They did, like, I don't know how you could watch this trailer and not be like, I would like to buy this video game, Nintendo, please.
I know I've made reference on a couple of times now over the last few years about how it looks like they've finally made a good Skyward Sword, but I am convinced that the animation of Link falling through the sky, that animation, that kind of idle pose he has, is ripped straight from Skyward Sword. It's a 1-to-1, and I will not be told otherwise.
Skyward Sword.
I do hate Skyward Sword.
Well,
so why are you trying to make Skyward Sword happen?
No, because I want a good Skyward Sword.
And it's the same director as Skyward Sword. I think that was his first 3D Zelda. So he's trying to redeem his ideas from Skyward Sword by bringing them back in Breath of the Wild.
Imagine everything you've seen is just like the first 4 or 5 hours of the game, and then the rest of it is essentially just another Skyward Sword.
That would be so good.
That would be. Well, in fairness, the problem with Skyward Sword is the first 3 to 4 hours of it is what you then do for the rest of Skyward Sword. Like, that game's problem is it runs out of steam after 3 to 4 hours. So, eesh, boy, well, we'll see what happens in a month's time, I guess.
Mark, it's not going to be a bad game. Look at it.
You know, it's funny I mentioned it's like, oh, it's the same director as Skyward Sword, but it's funny, it's like, that's the dude who directed Skyward Sword, who directed Breath of the Wild, and who is now assumedly directing Tears of the Kingdom. I don't think it's actually technically been confirmed. I assume it's the same director as Breath of the Wild. But the average person couldn't say his name. I don't know his name.
No.
Steve?
I looked up, it's Hidemaru Fujibayashi. The average person, in fact, like, not even the average person, like the average hardcore gamer who has played Breath of the Wild has never heard that game in their life. And that's the person who directed Breath of the Wild. Like, we all know Eiji Aonuma because he's like the public face producer of Zelda, but nobody knows who Hidemaru Fujibayashi is. Nobody.
It's a very fair point.
And he's made some of the most famous games ever. And Minish Cap. He also directed Minish Cap.
So just one stinker on the CV then, Mark. So you should be more confident now.
I guess. I don't know. Like, I feel like I suffered long-term damage from Skyward Sword. I'm still triggered by
Mark
that.
Off? We put Mark off Tears of the Kingdom. Don't buy it, Mark.
You don't, Jack. You cannot understand how bad Skyward Sword is.
I don't hate it that much, but you know, I haven't invested as much time in it as you.
No, and I think because it was bad enough that the original release was terrible, but then they somehow managed to remaster it and make the controls even worse, which is beyond perplexing. But you know, I digress.
So Tears of the Kingdom then
should be good. Should be good.
Looks great.
Great trailer.
You can attach a fish to a sword and kill Ganon. Like, you know, let's go.
My favorite part of the trailer is a very small part where there is a shield attached to a sword. He's just running around with his shield sword. Stupid. I love it.
Is that a shot at Pokemon?
It might be. This is what an open world is meant to look like. Pokemon Sword and Shield, even though that game only has open areas and is not actually an open world game. But like, yeah, just to compare it to freaking Suicide Squad, when you see like this trailer and you're like, there is like 70 things in this trailer you can watch and be like, oh, that's interesting. What is that? That's a cool mechanic. Where like Link is just doing like those slow motion like gravity jumps in the air between those platforms, and you're just like, that wasn't in the other game. What the fuck is going on there? And like, there's just so many little things like that in this 3.5 minute trailer, and you watch the 20 odd minute showcase for Suicide Squad, and you're just like, nope, nothing. Dead behind the eyes.
And I will say this, and I'm really not trying to be contrarian, especially because everyone apparently is now thirsty for Ganondorf. But I had like I had a mild amount of disappointment that they're using Ganon again. It's like you can do Zelda games where Ganondorf is maybe even just only like mentioned in a passing reference. Like, you can do stuff without him.
Martha, I have one for you. It's called The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
No, he's. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. That is Ganondorf. All right, you can call him whatever the fuck you want to call him. That is Ganondorf.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Like, I'm not taking their bullshit. Like, this is the origins beyond the origin story of Zelda.
He's called Demise in that game, Mark. That's not
Demise.
Ganon.
That's it. It's fucking Ganondorf. All right.
Mark sees Ganondorfs where there are no Ganondorfs.
So you could just do something else. Like, you know, Majora's Mask, great game. Didn't have Ganondorf. Just saying.
Up the hills Mark's willing to die on the fact that Demise is Ganondorf and Canoe.
Demise is Ganondorf, all right? I will give you a picture of Ganondorf and I'll give you a picture of Demise, all right? It's the same fucking person.
This is also technically the first game with Ganondorf since Twilight Princess, I'll have you know. The others have been Ganon, which is like the evil entity.
Yeah, all right, Calamity Ganon. Oh, well, ooh, it's not Ganon.
Yeah, it's Ganon, and Ganondorf is the human form, Mark. Please learn your Zelda lore.
Garrett, you are trolling me, and I will not bite any further on this.
Is there a Garrett and a Garrettdorf?
There is.
Sweet.
What is your Garrettdorf form?
It's the cousin of the character from Phineas and Ferb. It's Garrettdorf and Doofenshmirtz.
Oh dear. And on that
sounds like a great law firm that I would absolutely love to employ.
That's a sitcom. You should make that show Netflix.
Fucking bank that shit right now.
On that note, we will end it there for another installment of A Link to the Cast. As always, please like, listen, share, and subscribe. We love any appreciation that you find folk give us. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Link to the Cast. You can find us on YouTube at Link to the Cast. Please go and like and subscribe there as well. As always, we are on Twitter at the hopefully returning next week. Dave is at The Day to Dave. I'm at Lithium Project. Jack is at Jack Lazell. Garrett is at Garrett Kidney. Thank you once again for listening to another installment, and we will see you again next week.